Requirements elicitation is about discovering the requirements and needs of stakeholders. In this course, I'll show you how requirements conversations help you build relationships and elicit powerful information to increase the value and results of your work. You'll learn to effectively and strategically plan for these critical conversations, as well as how to conduct and follow up on them. I'll also discuss key insights to relationship building, asking powerful probing questions, and the mindset you'll need to be successful. I'm Angela Wick, business analysis expert and instructor. Let's dive in. Interviewing is a formal term used in business analysis for a requirements conversation. A conversation about what's changing due to a process, system, or policy change, for example. Requirements conversation and interviews are one of many techniques to gather, discover, elicit, and learn information from a person or group of people. Without these conversations and analysis of what you learn from them, people are often left with confusion, rework, and gaps, systems and processes that don't work, and plain frustration. These conversations and interviews are the most common techniques used to elicit requirements and help teams plan for implementing changes. It can be very helpful in discovering needed information and enable you in building positive stakeholder relationships. If you're like most, you spend a lot of your time having these conversations and you're looking for some ways to make the most of this critical technique. To use your stakeholders' precious time efficiently, you'll need to ensure that you prepare, plan, execute, and follow up. These conversations have a lot of strategic elements that, when used correctly, can create better results for the organization and maximize your impact as part of the team. There are 4 things to help make your interviews and conversations for requirements successful. First, your preparation and experience. Next, ensuring you're talking with the right people. And the willingness and readiness of the participants to provide detailed information. And last, the relationship and rapport that you build with your stakeholders. When considering if this is the right technique to use, there are some key things to keep in mind. First, some strengths. These conversations allow a very focused dialogue at any level of detail, context and big picture, or details. Also, they allow those being involved to express feelings, opinions, and thoughts in a more private environment. And last, it's a really great way to establish and build relationships. There are also a few key challenges that you should consider. First, it's rather difficult and takes great skill to do these conversations well. The result can also be misinterpreted by the participant. Also, some participants may withhold critical information intentionally or not. And overall, it can be quite time-consuming to prepare, conduct, and follow up with as many people as you'd like. Requirements conversations and interviews are a critical part of your requirements toolbox. With good practice, you'll soon be on your way to using this technique to its full potential. Requirements conversations help us build powerful relationships with stakeholders and user groups. This absolutely is critical to success when changing systems and business processes. These conversations can help us with things like understanding the problem or opportunity of the project or requested change, and connecting pieces of important context, big picture, and details. Also, building relationships. And last, understanding the potential solution from each person's unique perspective. Now, there may be different people to meet with on a project and depending on the situation and the context. So let's look at some common roles you'll likely talk to and why you might meet with each of them. First, the sponsor. The sponsor of the project is the business leader accountable for the change. They're often interviewed and talked to understand the problem or opportunity from a business leadership perspective. You'll likely meet with them to understand how the project aligns to higher level goals, objectives, and strategies of the organization. Another role you'll talk to are the leaders and managers of the areas impacted, as they have a unique perspective to the problem and opportunity for their area of responsibility. You'll also likely meet with the users of the solution. They have key insight into the problems and opportunities, and yet have another unique perspective that leaders and sponsors may not be aware of. These users often have all kinds of frustrations and ideas for how to improve the process and solution. Since they're the ones using the solution, we need to ensure that whatever we develop will meet their needs along with the leaders' and sponsors' needs. Finally, the subject matter experts of the solution, system, process, or product you're working on. The subject matter expert, or sometimes referred to as SMEs or SMEs, they have detailed information about the customer, the business, or system domain, and they can connect information from users and leaders that might not otherwise be easily connected. You'll need their perspective that contains a deeper level of knowledge about the product or solution as a whole. Sometimes our subject matter experts and users, and leaders as well, can be the same person. The roles might overlap. It's a delicate role to show your value beyond gathering requirements and taking notes. Your role is to make the change work for everybody involved, not just give somebody what they ask for. Often the solution given by a leader is only part of the technical solution, and this can cause unintended errors if we don't fully understand the need and context. There are also other options and alternatives that might work to solve for the problem, and they might actually be more cost-effective, faster, or not impact other user groups in a negative way. It's your role to dig in and understand what the underlying need is and ensure the solution is complete and will not negatively impact other users. Now that you know who to talk to and why, you'll need to understand your unique project type and how it provides additional context to your interviewing conversations. Use the exercise file provided to guide you through some sample project types and interviewing rationale. Have you ever been to a meeting where it felt like a waste of time? Perhaps the meeting organizer could have prepared more to have a better conversation. Our stakeholders expect and deserve for their time to be used well, and preparing for our requirements conversations is no exception. These meetings can be disastrous if we show up without preparing. There's a process you follow to get the most of your stakeholders' time, and mastering this process will make your work and others' time efficient. Careful preparation, thoughtful execution, and strategic follow-ups can save you and the team precious time later in the project. First is preparation. Preparing for the conversation sets you and those interviewed up for success and is a good use of everyone's time. Preparing includes things like defining the purpose of the conversation and selecting the right person or people to talk to, researching the participants, planning your questions, and last, planning the logistics of setting up the meeting. I know, much of this seems tactical, right? But these steps can be more strategic in nature and truly set up success for other aspects of the project. Next is having the conversation. Conducting the interview conversation is critical to your stakeholder relationships. How you behave and your behavior self-awareness often determines how much the participant will share. Careful awareness and being in tune with the participants can make or break the conversation and of a stakeholder relationship. Conducting the interview includes things like building rapport and laying out expectations, asking probing questions in a non-threatening manner, active listening and empathy, capturing notes and important findings, and last, wrapping up the conversation so everyone leaves feeling good. The last step in the conversation and interview is the follow-up. Following up includes things like thanking them for their time and input, and confirming and empathizing with their needs. Also, following up on any hot button items, reviewing your notes for intent, and confirming action items. The requirements elicitation process when doing requirements conversations and interviews can be tactical and also very strategic. Be sure to take advantage at the strategic level to get amazing results. So if I set up a meeting with you with a title of Requirements for Project B, I know what the meeting's about. But what if I go a step further and also define a compelling purpose? Something like, to discuss the current pain points that have led to this project, understand your vision of the future state, and discuss critical user scenarios in scope. With this purpose, I have planted a seed to get you thinking more and prepare more for the conversation. Subtle, yet impactful. Being intentional about our meeting purpose is critical. It helps build trust, respect, and shows you own your role and are prepared. The first step is to ask yourself, why do I need to meet with this person? And take this even further and ask yourself, how will this person benefit from meeting with me? Without answers to these questions, you risk wasting the organization's money and resources. Let's take a look at a few common interview purpose and objective statements. One purpose, for example, might be to begin building a relationship with a stakeholder, especially those you don't know yet or haven't connected with in a while. Another one might be to get an idea for the various solution options and alternatives that should be considered. Even if a potential solution has already been discussed, it's always okay to discuss additional options and alternatives. This gives us critical context to ensure we fully understand the problem. Now, when meeting with a business leader or sponsor, you might want to have a purpose or objective like understand how the project fits into their strategic plan. You might also want to understand the goals, objectives, and vision that they have for the project and solution. Now, how about when meeting with managers and leaders of the teams impacted? You might want to understand their pain points or understand their ideas and perspective on how things could be improved. Now, when meeting with user representatives, it's important to understand their pain as well. Their ideas and perspectives on what can be improved is often some of the best context and information to drive project success. With users, it's also helpful to understand the details of how they perform their work. Now, this detailed dialogue on how they perform their work could likely be a separate conversation from understanding their pain points and ideas. I know my days get busy. It's easy to lose sight of why I scheduled something 2 weeks ago. Your meeting purpose can be added to the meeting invites that you send so participants and you have a reminder of the purpose handy to prepare yourself for the conversation. Defining the purpose and objective of an interview is a crucial step to ensuring you don't waste anyone's time. If you do this consistently, you'll be known as someone who respects others' time, and your colleagues will gladly accept your meeting requests. When you're talking to the right people, things just go smooth. But talking to the wrong person for your meeting purpose or project needs can be frustrating. When you feel like you keep asking questions, going in circles, or simply just not getting anywhere, this is a clue you might be talking to the wrong person. Sometimes it can be avoided and sometimes it can't. The important part is that you recognize it, finish the conversation gracefully, keep the relationship intact, and then find the right person to meet your objective. The best way to avoid interviewing the wrong person is to do a little work up front. You might be given names of people to talk to and interview about requirements. You might also find some names on your own, based on your own analysis, research, and knowledge. There are several resources you can tap into throughout your organization or project team to help you find the right people. You may start with a sponsor who may ask you to talk to a list of people. You may also get names from the project manager. Many times, the names that others give us might be just guesses, so always be aware that you might need to change course and find the right people to talk to. Also, consider leveraging existing relationships you have and taking a look at the project or organizational documents. You may be analyzing documents about the project, process, system, or product and see key names that might be relevant. Here are some tips to identifying the right people. First, when someone offers a name of someone to talk to, ask them to give you some insight and context into why they recommend you meet with this person. Next, if you find a name doing research and you feel they'd be a good candidate to talk to, ask others on the team if they feel that person would be good for you to chat with about requirements and what you'll likely learn from them. Also, as you analyze the project and solution context, business processes, and users impacted, you'll identify others to talk to as well. When in doubt, you can also send a quick note to somebody asking them if they're the right person to talk to about a specific topic, and if not, ask them who they'd recommend. Keep an open mind because you might not be talking to the right person. I'll often even ask those that I meet with, who else should I talk to? Knowing how to identify and select the right people to talk to will make your requirements elicitation process more successful. It will build key relationships and save your organization precious resources. It can be tempting to set up a meeting, prep some questions, and just show up. But to get a better result, you'll want to research the person or people who will be there. Researching the person will help you connect and build rapport more quickly and will help you select meaningful questions to probe further and deeper in the conversation. I want to share some ideas on how to research the stakeholders you'll be talking to. You may not incorporate all of these into researching every person, but thinking about these things and selecting a few key things for each person will help. I've also included a checklist of more of these research questions in an exercise file for you. Researching someone can also be helpful if you haven't spoken with them in some time or if they're a leader in the organization and there's constant change happening. The first area to research is who they are professionally. You might want to look into things like what is their title and role, and where are they in the org chart? What's their major role and responsibility in the organization? These types of things will help you start to understand how they fit into the project and what their attitude about the project might be. Also consider the organizational politics that you need to be aware of. The second area is what their relationship is to the project. Understanding their role in relationship to the project is looking into things like, have they voiced any opinions about the project, positive or negative? Or additionally, you may want to look into things like, how does the project likely impact them or their team? What's in it for them to support this project and participate? The third area is about them personally. Knowing a bit about their personality, work style, and some personal things will help you connect better. Are they a relationship person? Are they data-driven or more of a just-do-it person? This helps you know how much time to spend on getting to know them versus getting straight to the point. Do they have common hobbies, family, or related friends and family to the organization? For example, maybe they spend a lot of their free time volunteering and they love to chat and connect about that. You might be thinking, so where do I get all this information? Well, we get this information from people you've already established trusted relationships with. It might be the project manager or leader you report to, or someone else that you're close with. It might also be other stakeholders you've already built rapport with. You would also search organizational pages and sites and even LinkedIn. Another way to research is to use generative AI and research the role of the person you'll be talking to. For example, what would a VP of billing be concerned about when updating the accounts receivable process? Or what are the common challenges in accounts receivable systems? Doing research upfront will help ensure you're spending time with the right people. It will also provide insight into how to connect with them so the conversation flows and you both benefit from the dialogue. Fail to plan, plan to fail. This phrase purposefully describes prepping for requirements conversations as well. We need to plan to make the best use of the time we have with stakeholders. And in requirement solicitation, you, as the requester, are the planner, including helping participants plan as well. So, are you intentionally planning your meetings or just winging it? Besides the meeting purpose, the biggest part of planning is the questions you'll ask. I like to have a set of questions that are ready to guide me in the conversation. They're not a script, but rather a guide. I want a natural conversation, and I'll use my preparation as a guide to start and for when I feel like I need to get back on track. First, look back at the purpose you've defined for your conversation, as well as the information you have from the research about the participants. I like to select 3 to 5 main questions that will structure the conversation, and then I'll ask more probing sub-questions as I go. When selecting the questions to ask, there are some key things I want you to keep in mind. The type of question is important. When you plan your questions, pay close attention to if the question is open-ended or closed-ended. Open-ended questions are those that allow for any type of answer. Close-ended questions are those that give the interviewee a list or range of answers, like a yes or no question. I like to start with 3 to 5 open-ended questions and then use close-ended questions within the dialogue of each if needed to clarify my understanding or get to a specific detail. Use them in combination to ensure you haven't missed out on something important or assume there's not more to the answer. I've included an exercise file with some sample interview questions that can help you formulate your plan. I've also successfully used generative AI to help me brainstorm questions to ask stakeholders. Perhaps a prompt like, pretend you're a business analyst and discussing solution requirements for the new billing system with a VP of accounts receivable. What questions would you ask about their current process? I encourage you to download the exercise file and circle your favorite questions. Also, feel free to add your own questions to the list. Keep it handy for use to prep for these critical conversations. Prepping your questions ahead of time only takes a few minutes, but it makes all the difference. It helps you focus on the relationship with your stakeholder and start the dialogue off on the right foot. Have you ever been invited to a meeting and just not sure why you were sent the invite? Or even sure who the person is inviting you? When this happens, if you're like me, you might not prioritize the meeting or even prepare for it. If something comes up, you might even show up late or just not go and cancel the meeting. Requirements conversations are no different. They are more than just sending out a meeting invite and booking a room or a link. If you are being strategic about setting up the meeting, you might do things like reach out and introduce yourself ahead of time in person or even an email or message. And you might send the purpose and a few questions or topics you'd like to talk about ahead of time and give them a chance to think about it and gather information for you. If meeting in person, strategically choosing the location is another consideration. Resist the urge to just book a conference room by your desk. Consider a room by their desk or a casual meeting space on neutral ground. If you're on a video conference, use video. Turn those cameras on to establish trust and a deeper connection. Also, think about a meeting in their office where they might be more comfortable and can easily find information or show you work examples. And last, when meeting with a senior leader, personally talk to their support staff to understand what's a good time for them. Next, I'd like to share with you some tactical things in setting up these conversations that can make a big difference. When setting up the meeting, make sure to title the meeting something that will make sense when they read their calendar for the day. For example, I had a day of meetings scheduled for me where my entire calendar said Meet with Angela. So when I looked at my calendar day view, I had no idea what any of these meetings were about. It just said Meet with Angela, one right after another the entire day. So think about what the other person's quick calendar view will be. And rather than just Meet with Angela, perhaps use something like Discuss the challenges of claims refunds. It'll be more meaningful on their calendar, and this is just so simple yet so powerful to prep them for their day. Setting up a requirements conversations can be a very tactical task, but can be so strategic as well. Here's the project scenario. Dawn is the leader who is sponsoring the project to enhance the current online medical records for the clinic. The project is looking to improve the patient online experience and increase the patient usage of online records while saving costs. Hey, Dawn, how are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm good.
Good. Didn't you just get back from vacation?
I did. It was really relaxing. We had a great time.
Oh, that's great. I think I need a vacation. Did you get to disconnect quite a bit?
I did. Yeah, it was great.
Oh, that's great. Well, how are things going in your area here at work?
Well, things are going really well. We have a lot of exciting changes happening. The compliance changes have really got us running around. Never seems to stop, though. How about you?
Oh, I'm good. I could totally relate to that. Besides the online records project we're working on, I'm also working on the claims update project.
Oh, yeah, Melissa's been working on that one. Have you spoken with her?
I think she's on my list of folks to connect with, but I'm sensing a little.
Her area has been impacted, so she's just so nervous about everything.
Okay. Wow. Thanks for the heads up on that. It's super helpful context about her current mindset.
Absolutely, for sure.
Well, why don't we dig into the medical records project we're here to talk about?
Yeah, let's.
So tell me more about it. What's the goal of all this? I want to hear it straight from you.
Okay, well, we're looking to continue to improve the online medical records for our team and patients. And we'd like to see the patients use the self-service more, and this will decrease the volume in our customer service area. This is a strategy that we've been doing, and it's a great opportunity for us. But there have been some areas we're worried about, and we just want to keep the momentum moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for sharing. It sounds like you've had some ideas on how to accomplish some of this. I'm really hoping that you and I can dig into more so we can truly accomplish your intended goals.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you need to know?
Well, I really want to understand this from your perspective and your vision. It'll really help me connect the other teams and prepare for upcoming meetings that I'm having. So why don't we start off with what does success look like from your perspective, a patient's perspective, and any other perspective you can share?
Well, I'm working with Joe in the call center, and he wants to convert the patient's phone inquiries to online self-service, as well as leverage AI in that process to help. Right now, people are calling in and saying it's a lot easier to call than it is to get the information online. And this is just an area of confusion and obviously a concern for us. We really need to improve this and make self-service valuable to the patients.
Got it. Okay. So patients are trying to use the online portal and they want to use it, but it's just too frustrating for them and they end up calling in instead?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, the good news is that we're here to fix this, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think this project started a year and a half ago with the same mission. And it seems like the first time we tried, we really missed the mark and we only met the technical need and scope, but we didn't really deliver on the patient behavior results we were looking for. What do you see as the biggest risks?
Well, for me, the biggest risk is that we continue to frustrate patients. Right now, they're using the site, and I don't want them to give up on us.
Oh, that's understandable. So, how would you measure success then for this project?
Hmm. More of the patients that are logging in, successfully getting what they need. I want to see the ones that we frustrated in the past, and I want to convert them over to using the online site.
Right. So it sounds like we really need to put a high priority on usability and the patient experience.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for that. I would love to gather some data that tells us exactly what's happening to users as they use the online portal. Things like where they're dropping off in their user experience and what's likely frustrating them. I can work with the data analytics team to research what's happening with the user experience and also work with them to predict when a user is likely to abandon their online experience. There may also be ways we can predict and prescribe actions to the user if we can model it out. With this, we can look at possible solutions that will improve all of this. We can model these solutions and test out some options. Who on your team would you like us to work with as we investigate and explore this data and these various options?
That all sounds great. Please contact Julie Thompson. She's our customer success manager. I know she's really passionate about this issue.
Oh, great. I can't wait to talk to her. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
This is the kind of project I really get excited about. I just love to dig into how the customer's experience with the organization can be improved. Dawn, thanks so much for your time. Did you catch how this scenario really had to explore what the key value of the project is? Next, we'll look into how to conduct great interviews and conversations by building rapport, asking probing questions, and I have some challenges for you to work through with more conversation scenarios. I want to run two scenarios by you. One, you walk into a meeting with someone you don't know and feel totally intimidated and full of anxiety. Or two, same situation, but you feel at ease, like you're talking to a new friend. Is this just luck and chemistry, or is skill and strategy involved? What techniques do we use to make others feel at ease? You can take intentional steps to create this type of connection. Connecting and building rapport on one or many levels will give you a leg up on this chemistry and help you establish a trusting relationship. I want to provide some insight into what skills and techniques can greatly increase the likelihood of a great connection and rapport with your requirements conversations. Researching the person can give us clues to building rapport. Understanding just a few things about their professional and personal background, as well as their history with the project, can give you insight to the mindset they may be coming into the meeting with. Let's look at building rapport in terms of professional rapport, personal rapport, and project rapport. First, building professional rapport. This is connecting with them about your careers. Maybe you've worked on similar areas previously, or maybe your last project impacted their area. You want to show that you understand and can empathize with their position and role. Your research may show some of these connections. Next, building personal rapport. This is connecting with them through personal interests outside of work. It could be having children the same age or maybe growing up in the same area. Perhaps knowing someone in common or sharing a hobby or news story of interest. Last is project rapport. And this is about a shared excitement for what the project will achieve. You can connect with someone by mentioning a project meeting you both attended and dig deeper with that connection. No matter what the connection you establish is, sometimes the other person may not be excited about the project. Being aware of this is important to your overall rapport with them. A few things to consider thinking about to practice rapport skills might be things like, how will you react if they're not really excited about the project or seem uninterested in what the project's about? And how will you establish or recover the rapport if this happens? My advice is to react with empathy and compassion and not rush your agenda. Be sensitive as you build this critical relationship. Sometimes this extra focus on the other rather than your own agenda may seem like it's slowing things down, but it'll save you time in the end. As a way to practice, take a look at the previous video example interview and evaluate what type of rapport I built. Share your thoughts in the course Q&A. Our stakeholders require a trusting relationship with us in evolving their businesses, products, and operations. Building professional, personal, and project rapport is an essential part of eliciting requirements. I'm sure you can relate to being on your way to a meeting with no idea what the meeting is about. And when this happens, you might even wonder why you got the meeting invite, or you might be thinking it could be a waste of your time. After all, you are too busy with other things, right? It can be downright frustrating to be in this situation. When starting off a requirements conversation, we first build rapport, and then it's important to set expectations about what the meeting's all about and address any lingering concerns or questions that may prevent a successful dialogue. I like to start off by sharing my goal and purpose of the conversation, and then ask if they have anything to add or questions before jumping in. Some participants simply say something like, "No, let's dive right in." And some will have really big questions, things that I would have thought had been answered already about the project communications or the sponsor. It's quite common to get questions like, "Why are we doing this project?" Or, "Can you help me understand why this project even needs my input?" These types of questions signal that the stakeholder is not well informed of what the project is looking to achieve and how they fit into it. They likely then are also not prepared to begin working on requirements with us as well. When this happens, you may need to change course on the fly and change up your questions. Sometimes the participants have strong concerns about the proposed solution and will voice strong opinions about it to you in the beginning. It's great to be able to address these concerns right away, helping them realize that their role is to create a shared understanding and the proposed solution might change. This is also an indicator that a strong relationship with the stakeholder is needed. Getting ahead of any obstacles, as well as ensuring the others are comfortable in sharing, will set the tone for a productive dialogue. I have a friend who is so good at asking questions. They're questions that really make me think. They are the questions that make me dig deep, questions where I find my own self-awareness, and questions that have me searching for answers in a way that's a learning process itself. Have you ever had this experience? These are great conversationalists. They're fun to talk to, energizing, and thought-provoking. In these conversations, you end up learning and discovering thoughts, patterns, opinions, and connections that weren't previously there. The magic in this type of dialogue is high-impact questions being asked and the flow of the conversation they create. These questions show an ultimate curiosity and focus on the other person's perspective. Our role when eliciting requirements is to help our stakeholders discover and uncover their requirements. We can't assume that their stated requirements are well-formed and without gaps. There's always missing context and changing pieces. In our conversations, we may ask open or close-ended questions. Open-ended questions are those that allow a free response, but just because it's open-ended does not mean it's high impact. High impact questions make a requirements conversation thrive. But why, you might ask? Well, they make the other think, and they're great at probing with compassion and curiosity. They're non-judgmental in content, tone, and body language. They also show respect for the other and their thinking process. And they're not questions that lead to an isolated set of answers or lead the other to a certain line of thought. You know that you've hit a great question when the responder says something like, "Good question," or "Let me think about that." Another sign of a great question is when the answer isn't really well articulated and thought through from the other. So your question empowers them to think out loud, for example. But be ready for this and lean into it. It can sometimes be an uncomfortable dynamic to sit in, but it's worth it. High impact questions empower and invite introspection. Some examples of high impact questions you may want to try are things like, tell me what success looks like from your point of view. Or how about, what are some of the risks that you're concerned about? Take a look at the exercise file I'm including with the course for a list of more high-impact questions. What are your favorites and why? Use the course Q&A to discuss your favorite questions. I hope these questions inspire you to come up with some of your own as well and transform your conversations to uncover higher quality requirements. Asking good questions is a key part of requirements elicitation, and asking why is a key piece of probing and getting to the root cause, which is a critical part of our analysis. Yes, asking why can be dangerous. Why, you ask? Well, asking why directly can put the other person in a defensive position. They may feel threatened, or perhaps that you are questioning their authority or position to be asking for something. When someone feels defensive, their emotional state is often in a place where they can no longer effectively listen and communicate with us in a healthy way. Now, we can't control others' emotions, but we can control our own delivery and recognize that some questions are risky. So, how do we get to the why with less risk of a strong emotional reaction from the other person? Well, first, recognize that being curious and wanting to ask why is a good thing. It means you have the right mindset. Next, recognize that there are different ways to achieve your question without putting the other in a potentially defensive state. And last, have your alternative ways of asking why ready to go. Here are a few of my favorites. I'm curious, what led you to this idea? And I can feel the importance of this for you. Tell me more. What would happen if we don't do it this way? And tell me more about what inspired this idea. I have more ideas on ways to ask why for you in the exercise files. Check it out and reflect on what resonates with you. Asking why is critical to our role. With a little finesse, you'll be asking why without using the word why and having meaningful requirements conversations. Practice makes perfect, right? Well, practice goes a long way, and while requirements are never perfect, we can improve them with great conversations. Here are some scenarios that I've laid out sample situations for requirements conversations. I challenge you to come up with a plan for who to meet with, the purpose of the conversation or interview, and what questions you would ask. When looking at what questions to ask, make sure to use the exercise file with sample questions as a reference. The scenarios are also provided in the exercise files. Okay, here's the first scenario. You've just been assigned to a new project, and you've met with the IT leader who's responsible for the effort. The IT leader shares with you a little bit about the project, and here are some of the things she's shared. The project is to replace a legacy system with a package software. The package software is for a CRM or customer relationship management system. The business sponsor is pretty sure he knows exactly which package he'd like to see implemented. The user groups, they have lots of ideas and concerns. And she'd like you to get to work on requirements. So, who would you meet with first? And what would your objective be in meeting with them? What research might you do ahead of time? And what questions would you likely start out with in your plan to talk to them? Take a pause and work through this. I promise it's worth thinking through. Okay, great. Let's move on to the second scenario. You've been asked to help out on some enhancement requests for the customer-facing website that customers use to review their medical claim information. The current website was implemented about 6 months ago and has a long backlog of enhancement requests. You've been given 2 specific enhancements to work on by the project manager and a list of names of who you should talk to about requirements. The project manager has given you the names of the web self-service manager, the customer service manager, as well as the director of customer service. Who would you meet with first? And what would your objective be in meeting with them? What research would you do ahead of time? And what questions would you likely start out with in your plan to talk to them? I hope you're willing to work through one more example to fully understand conversation planning. So here's scenario 3. You've been asked to work on a new project for the audit operations team. This team would like to automate some of their work and need your help in identifying what should be automated and what some possible solutions are. Who would you meet with? And what would your objective be for the meeting? What research would you do ahead of time? And last, what questions would you likely start out with in your plan to meet with them? Okay, do you have your answers ready? In the next video, I'll share with you some of my answers and we can compare. Before we get to the solution answers, I want you to know that these answers are just guidelines. Definitely focus on the concepts, not specific roles, titles, or perfect answers. If your answers are different, just reflect on the differences as different organizations use different terms and there's different context. Okay, let's look at scenario 1. It's about the legacy replacement of a customer relationship management system to a packaged software. And you've already gotten the project background from the IT leader. You can also take a look at the exercise file for more details to jog your memory. Now, let's answer the challenge questions. So who would you meet with first? My answer is the sponsor. And why I chose the sponsor is because it would be critical to understand why the sponsor picked this packaged software and what he's looking for in a packaged software. Understanding the sponsor's goals and vision is critical to determining how to approach the users next. With this info, then I'm ready to prep and meet with the others. Next, the meeting objective. My answer is to understand the goals and vision of their business operations with this new software and the why behind the packaged software. And last, what questions would I likely start with? I'd start with things like, what does success look like? And what would happen if we don't go through with the packaged software implementation? Who would benefit most and how? What led you to this specific packaged software? And how would you measure success? Also, what risks do you see are the biggest risks to this project? Great, now let's look at scenario 2. It's about the website enhancements to view medical claim information. Who would you meet with first? Well, my answer to this one is the director of customer service. I chose them because I'll need to understand the context of the last 6 months and how these 2 enhancements connect to the bigger picture, other enhancement requests, and the current issues the customer service team is facing. This will then help me meet with the others. My objective is to understand the context and why these two are the most important enhancements at this time. My questions: what pain points are we trying to alleviate with these two enhancements? And how will you know that we've implemented them successfully? Also, I'd ask, who will benefit most from these enhancements? Okay, scenario 3, the audit operations project. I chose the operations manager or general manager. My objective in meeting with them is to understand the pain points and goals of the automation efforts. The questions that I chose: what does success look like? And what pain points are we trying to alleviate? What teams or areas is your team dependent on? And what teams or areas are dependent on your team? Also, I'd ask, what parts of your operation are repeatable, high volume, and maybe good candidates for automation? One of the biggest mistakes we can make in requirements elicitation is to dive into the details before understanding the context and big picture. When this happens, we often and unknowingly go after the wrong details. Remember our online medical record example? The project has been spending precious time and money on details that were not creating the needed business outcomes. The value of the users converting to the online system was not originally met. In all of these examples, we are setting up the context so when we get to the details, we're going in the right direction. In this challenge, you'll need to identify what went wrong in a requirements conversation. A requirements analyst has been assigned to work on a new project to replace their customer relationship management system, or CRM. The requirements analyst is meeting with the sales manager to understand the pain points of a system and wants to know how the new system can improve their work. The IT team, they want to save maintenance costs. And the sales team would like to leverage the newest innovations in customer relationship management and artificial intelligence. Let's watch the conversation. So, what features are you looking to use in the new CRM?
Oh, so many. I'm actually so excited to move on from our old system and use one that could keep up with the times, if you know what I mean.
Sure. So tell me more about what you envision.
Well, I'd like to see a new system that could generate our sales pitch details for an upcoming pitch meetings. You know, when a sales rep enters a new prospect, the system could use AI to auto-generate a sales pitch. Like, I'm thinking on the new prospect screen, there'd be a button that says something like generate pitch.
Oh, okay. That sounds cool. I bet we can do that.
Oh, great.
So I think next we'll just need to work on what that screen would look like.
Oh, my team's already been working on it. Here, let me share with you a mock-up of what we're thinking.
So your team worked on what the screen might already look like. You're way ahead of me.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Okay, so I see. Then what if I could take a copy of this and write up the requirements and we can go from there?
Awesome. That sounds great.
Okay, great. So glad you have all the details done. I really think we're in good shape.
Oh, excellent. Here, let's sign off on this, and then we'll get everything together, get this done ASAP.
We'll work on it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Now take a moment to jot down what went wrong with this conversation and how it could be improved. You can use the course notebook to type in your answers, and in the next video, I'll explain what I think went wrong. Isn't this one an interesting scenario, and one that commonly happens? In this scenario, I met with the sales manager to understand what the current pain points are and goals of the new CRM system. It's also common that a stakeholder jumps in with the solution. In a requirements conversation, it's a tough place to be. So what went wrong? Well, the path and plan of asking high-impact and probing questions, it went awry. And the conversation evolved into solution details mode. This scenario, it will likely result in a lot of missed requirements. The project will likely be postponed or result in a long list of defects and enhancements to work on later. One big issue is that the stakeholder gives us the solution and technical details, and the conversation, it wasn't reset to the bigger picture. The dialogue continued into the technical design before understanding the business and user needs and the goals in better detail. Another issue is the order taker mentality that it's assumed the stakeholder knows exactly what they need. Taking a more exploratory and discovery-oriented approach is better. Understanding the problem domain before focusing on how the problem will be solved is so important. When stakeholders come with solutions, they're typically not vetted or analyzed in a way that can actually be implemented successfully. These solution ideas are simply a way to express what they're thinking, but they don't really give us the critical information from the many perspectives that we need. Reality is, in this case, analysis gets skipped. This causes missed requirements, defects, and backlogs of requests later, ultimately building mistrust between the business leaders and development teams. A great mindset for requirements assumes that the stakeholders' ideas are just options and ideas. The needs and context need to come before the solution, or the solution has a large risk of missing the mark on what's truly needed. Stakeholders commonly express their needs in terms of solution ideas and details, and it's our role to catch this and redirect the conversation back to the deeper layers of the problem, goals, and the needs from a business and user perspective. Missed requirements happen due to an inaccurate focus on solution details before truly understanding the context. Remember to reset to the context and you'll minimize these risks. You'll do better analysis and you'll build trusting relationships. I know it's really tempting to ask detailed questions to stakeholders or simply just ask the stakeholder, what are your requirements? But fair warning, this will not get you the results you and the team are looking for. Getting the context and big picture is critical to ensuring we get the right details. Details without the big picture are often the wrong details and the incorrect focus. This next challenge sets up the context so you can effectively choose which detailed questions to ask. The detailed questions you ask will probe deeper and get your stakeholders thinking about their true needs, not just what they think they want. And that's what this challenge is all about. For the scenario, I will present a situation and the context at a high level. Your task is to select the questions to get at the details, the ones that probe deeper. Here's the scenario. You've been asked to work on a new project for the customer service operations team. This team would like to automate some of their work with the use of generative AI and need your help in identifying the possible automations and what possible solutions there are. You've already met with the operations manager, and you've understood her pain points and the goals of the automation efforts. When you ask the operations manager, tell me more about what metrics your operations are measured by and what measurements we want to improve. You've also asked her, tell me more about your vision with generative AI. The operations manager answered, we are measured by our ability to continue to lessen the cost and time to answer each inquiry, and I feel like AI might be able to help us answer critical customer inquiries faster and resolve them on the first instance. So, your next task is to figure out what probing questions would you ask next. In the next video, I'll show you the probing questions that I would ask. So, were you able to identify deep, probing questions and get at the details regarding the automation of customer service operations? When you ask the operations manager, tell me more about what metrics your operations are measured by and what measurements we want to improve. And we also asked them, tell me more about your vision with generative AI. The operations manager answered, we're measured by our ability to continue to lessen the cost and time to answer each inquiry. And I feel like AI might be able to help answer customer inquiries faster and resolve them on the first contact rather than several. Well, here are the probing questions that I came up with. Which parts of a customer service process currently take the most time? And do you have a sense for what parts of the process your agents are most frustrated with? I can imagine lots of places where generative AI might be useful to improve your metrics. What parts of the process are you most excited to experiment with? So, how did you do? Did you come up with similar questions? Remember that answers will vary. It's the essence and concepts of the dialogue that are most important. What's important about this interaction is not to get caught up in the technical design and details of a solution or how things currently happen or should happen in the future, but we want to focus on the business and user context regardless of the technology at this point. Getting to the details of a system can easily take us off track, even though it might feel like progress. For example, when you ask which parts of a customer service process currently take the most time, they answer, well, listening to customers ramble on and on. It helps us follow up with more probing questions then to clarify what sorts of things customers ramble on and on about. So by asking something like, okay, that's helpful. Tell me more about the types of things customers ramble on about. Your focus when probing is to listen actively and dig in, and then summarize in terms of who, what, when, and why. The focus is the users and their behaviors, not the screen and technology details. Technology changes, but the user behaviors are what we must understand deeply to get the technical details correct. These probing details are where all the unstated and missed requirements are hidden. You've probably heard about active listening before and how it's about paraphrasing what you hear from others in your own words. But what does this mean to requirement solicitation? A stated requirement is what the stakeholder says they want. An actual requirement is what the stakeholder actually needs and is in a language the team can work with. Plain language, without technical terms, is best. It's not always easy to get from one to the other, but I'd like to share some examples and thoughts to help evolve your active listening skills in the context of requirements. Just like other areas of life and relationships, it's important to actively listen by not just hearing the words, but listening for the underlying intent. In requirements, these underlying intents need to be drawn out with deep questioning, listening, and probing questions. Imagine the following scenario. You're discussing enhancements to a software application with a stakeholder, and they say, I need a button on the left side of the screen that says Submit. Now, this is a stated requirement, but the actual requirement? Well, that's a mystery at this point. So I'm going to reply with something like, okay, so let me make sure I understand. You need to be able to send the order once you've completed entering the order pricing information. Did I get that right? The stakeholder then either agrees and confirms my paraphrasing into an actual requirement or corrects my understanding of what the user is trying to do and provides more information. So listening for actual requirements that are unstated, it's difficult. And this is where active listening comes in. Active listening is 100% focused on the other person and what they're trying to communicate rather than what their exact words are. Our stakeholders, they don't understand what good requirements sound like. We have to reframe what they say to get to good requirements. We use active listening and our requirements skills to do this. It's listening for the pain and for what the user is trying to do and solve for as they talk about the solutions. And it's listening for the actions and scenarios users perform rather than the technical things they say and imagine. When we're not actively listening, we're having an internal dialogue with our own inner voice, and perhaps we're designing potential solutions to fix the problem. Or maybe there's a lot going on in the room and you're easily distracted. Or perhaps you're even thinking about what your next question is and worried about getting all your questions in before the time is up. These are all super normal types of things and responses when listening. All of us can easily get caught up in our own inner dialogue and distractions. It's important to develop awareness of when this is happening so you can slip back and focus on the other person and their stated and unstated requirements. Practicing active listening and developing self-awareness is a skill that will enhance your conversation skills greatly. With analysis and requirements, this means listening for unstated and actual requirements. In your next requirements discussion, practice this unique lens on requirements listening and see what happens. I think you'll see great progress on high-quality requirements. Meeting notes can be very wasteful or can be very helpful and constructive. Let's take a look at some tips and learnings to make the most of your notes from your requirements conversations. Meeting notes are all about the purpose of the meeting and purpose of the notes. When the purpose of the meeting is to build a relationship and meet someone, notes might not be warranted at all. In this situation, notes might actually get in the way of your goal. In relationship building meetings, you also want to be careful not to send the wrong message and make others uncomfortable by recording everything they say. You may want to consider taking a few notes when back at your desk about the relationship and some reminders of next steps, for example. For meetings with purposes geared towards vision and high-level project dialogues, consider taking notes, but they should be quite summary level to jog your memory about the meeting. Jotting down every word someone says will typically distract you from listening, it'll distract others, and painfully slow down the meeting. Now, for conversations where the purpose is to gather detailed information from someone, more precise notes or even recordings might be appropriate. Determining if a meeting should be recorded or not is a bit tricky. Participants are more likely to be guarded about what they're saying if it's recorded, which can compromise the conversation goal. When we're successful in eliciting, their thoughts will evolve and change over time into better ideas and requirements than they first have. So recording for the purpose of pinning down what they say and holding them to that can actually be counter to the essence of what great elicitation is all about. So just be aware of your mindset and purpose when recording a detailed conversation. So how do we get at capturing all the details when someone's giving us all the detailed information? Well, here are some options to consider. First, old-fashioned note-taking. This can actually work quite well. Another option is to use a whiteboard where you and the participants can both contribute to key lists, diagrams, visuals, action items, and decisions made. One of my favorite go-to approaches for capturing details is to prepare for the dialogue with a visual model, diagram, or other framework. So, for example, if I'm talking to a subject matter expert on the process that she follows, I'll create a high-level picture of the process, and then below it, I'll create space for each step in the process and its people, exceptions, systems, and current issues. I'll come to the meeting with this framework blank, or perhaps just the high-level process steps filled in, and we'll complete the rest as we chat. I really hope these ideas give you all kinds of reasons to break out of the traditional note-taking mold and get better interview and conversation results. Requirements conversations that end in a flurry, they're a risk to your reputation and the project results. Make sure you have a plan and stick to it. Plan time appropriately to end the conversation. To ensure our stakeholders are comfortable with our progress, we need to end the conversation with confidence, next steps, and appreciation. Without this, stakeholders leave the room feeling uneasy, frustrated, and may talk behind your back, creating unneeded conflict and drama for the project. I would like to go over some tips on ending the conversation with comfort and ease. First, make sure you keep your eye on the clock and save time at the end of the conversation as well. I would rather decide with the others to schedule another block of time than rush through the agenda thinking everything got covered. During the last 10 minutes, review and summarize what was covered. You may also want to review the key points, decisions made, and next steps with everyone. I also like to ask what remains lingering in their minds. This simple yet powerful technique helps you see how their mindset has evolved throughout the conversation. When you're able to evolve the other's mindset, you're showing your value in the process. As a follow-up to what lingers, I like to ask, what concerns or risks are they thinking about? This shows you really care about their concerns and are not just trying to get through your agenda. This question also helps provide more context to emphasize and understand the stakeholder's point of view. Next, once you understand where their mindset is, you'll need to quickly determine if more time is needed. You can ask them if they think more time would be helpful to explore certain topics. You can agree on a rough date and an amount of time needed with them. Last but not least, review the items to follow up on with each person, including scheduling any follow-up meetings and when they can expect to hear from you next. And of course, don't forget to thank them for their time. I think we would all agree that getting a meaningful thank you card or email is a satisfying experience. It connects us with one another and feels good. Thanking the stakeholder for their time, not just at the end of the interview, but in some strategic follow-ups as well, goes a long way. By using a personal follow-up after the conversation, you can accomplish a few things. First, you reestablish the connection and rapport. Second, it gives them an opportunity to tell you or ask you something that's been on their mind since the conversation. I've found that these lingering thoughts are typically quite important. And last, a genuine follow-up and thank you is always a good idea. I don't use handwritten thank you cards for a requirements conversation, but there are some techniques I've used for you to consider in a personal thank you and follow-up. The most common technique is a quick email later in the day. This can be part of other follow-up items you're sending as well. What is important is that it's genuine, a genuine thank you for their time, and identifying a specific contribution they made and how it has or will impact the quality of the project. For example, in an email note, I might say something like, "Thank you, Dawn, for your time today discussing the online medical records project. Specifically, the risk you mentioned about the user experience is really powerful. I think you really hit on an important part of project success. I ensure that we will work hard on that aspect of the project." This is an example of how we can connect with a stakeholder and build trust. And if there's a misunderstanding, it's easy for them to reply back and correct that miscommunication. Another approach is to swing by their office, if it's close or convenient, and similarly, you would want to have that genuine thank you interaction and a specific contribution with why it was important. These simple principles apply in seeing them at the water cooler or at another meeting, for example, or at lunch. The thank you and follow-up is about building the relationship and building trust. strategically gaining the trust of our stakeholders by mentioning something very specific and impactful. Your actions will show the results. Sometimes after a requirements conversation, I can hardly read my own notes. And yes, I like to take notes by hand. It's a bit scary when you could barely make out your own handwriting. But I also realized that I was so focused on eye contact with the other person, I wasn't paying attention to my own writing. I would rather have maintained eye contact and keep the relationship strong than have perfect notes. Following up on a few things to clarify isn't always a bad thing either. It's critical to review your conversation notes for a few very important reasons. First, you want to make sure that you understand the intent of what the person was talking about, not just the words of the notes that you took. I like to compare this to the active listening you do during the conversation and reviewing your notes with that active listening mindset. While reading and thinking about your notes, allow your mind to connect emotionally with the stakeholders and allow yourself to analyze in order to develop further questions. This analysis is critical to identifying requirements gaps and also a shared understanding. So many missed requirements could be blamed on the idea that the stakeholder didn't mention it. But wait a minute, I want to challenge that and ask, have we truly analyzed what they've said and been proactive about thinking about possible gaps? I'll typically have 15 to 20 or more questions to ask after one of these conversations, especially and even after reviewing my notes and thinking about what needs to be explored further. Once you've had some time to focus on the notes, determine a plan to follow up on further questions and clarifications. Your plan might be to get more time with them or send a note with some questions to clarify things further. This is your opportunity to analyze, be consultative, and improve the requirements. Taking the requirements from stated to actual with your analysis is where so much value in our role comes in. Some analysts like to just type up the notes and send them off for review, but I don't recommend this without these analysis pieces and looking for the intent and missing gaps. Be strategic about what you send and the value that you're adding. Having some follow-up questions keeps the dialogue going rather than simply just validating what was said. Another key area is to write up the decisions that were made. Also, give them a heads up on the next steps and when you'll be in touch again. Remember when sending follow-up emails that the project is likely not their full-time job. So emails need to be concise and bulleted with lots of white space so they're easy to read and easy to reply and act on. Rambling emails will often not get replies. Following up from a requirements conversation is important and a very strategic part of our work. Leveraging this step can ensure your relationships are positive and missed requirements are minimized. Generative AI is changing how we work, and requirements conversations are no exception. Now, I'm not talking about robots having conversations with stakeholders instead of us, but I am seeing some great ways to leverage AI to help your requirements conversations. First, consider using generative AI to help you research the role and domain of the people you're talking to. For example, if I'm going to meet with the VP of sales about a new project that's about prospecting leads, I could use generative AI to learn more about the prospecting leads process and domain, and I could use it to learn in general what this is like for a sales leader. I might use generative AI in a prompt like, I'm working on improving the prospecting leads process in my organization, and I'm meeting with the VP of Sales. Can you tell me more about the prospecting process and what a VP of Sales is concerned about? And I might follow up with questions asking about the response I get from generative AI. Perhaps something like, okay, great. What risks are common in projects that change these processes? Or what are the biggest risks that sales teams encounter when changing the prospecting process? With this research, I can formulate good questions to ask and come into the conversation more knowledgeable about the business domain. This will help me connect with the stakeholder better. Next, I could use generative AI to take notes for my conversations and create summaries from the notes. Now, when using note-taking tools that leverage generative AI, it's important to take the time to read, reflect, and edit. Read the notes the tool produced, reflect on if they truly capture the essence of the meeting, and then edit to make them even better. I would also be careful to check in with my participants on if they're even okay with an AI note taker as well before allowing a tool to record the meeting. There are many other potential uses for generative AI in our work with requirement solicitation and analysis. I encourage you to use the course Q&A feature to share your ideas with others and ask others that are using AI in their role how they're using it. Now that you've completed the course, your next steps are to practice planning and conducting requirements conversations with your stakeholders. First, grab an index card and review the sample interview questions file. Write down your favorite questions, the ones that resonate with you, your projects, and your typical stakeholders. Also, write down any other questions that you'd like to use. Keep this index card handy when you're planning and having these conversations. It may also help to think about some of your recent conversations with stakeholders and reflect on what you've learned in the course that will help make your next conversations even better. So, for example, could researching the participants help you build better rapport? How about planning the goal and your high-impact questions for that goal in advance? Also, are you focusing on the relationship and active listening? And would you like to try some new frameworks for note-taking, maybe a visual note-taking framework? And last but not least, could your follow-up be more strategic? Requirements conversations and interviews are just one of many techniques to discover requirements with your stakeholders. I hope you found this course useful and you're eager to practice and learn even more techniques to elicit requirements. Your role in maximizing the value and ensuring the right solution is created is critical to the organization's success.